So here we're going to create this little animation of this rolling ball on the grass field made out with paint effects in Maya, and then we're going to see how we can make this to render in Arnold. Let me go ahead and start with a new scene and see how we can create this. So the first thing is we need to start with that plane that you saw, and I can go ahead and scale this plane, knowing that the grid is here 24 centimeters square. So if we're going to create the ball too, then we most likely need a bit of a larger frame here. I can right click, assign new material. We are using Arnold, by the way, because we cannot render with Maya's legacy type of materials in Arnold. So because we're using the Arnold render engines and we want to have this full experience of rendering in Maya, I strongly suggest and recommend you guys to keep with the Arnold shaders, standard surface shader. So I'm going to drop this one for this, and it would be a good idea to immediately name them. So I'm gonna ground underscore STSF for standard surface. And by now we know if I bring the hyper shader here, with this object selected, I can click on the input and output graph, and the standard shader is right here, is exactly this one you see up here. If I select this one more time and click one more time on the input and output graphs, I can see also the material, which is the one I just named. So if this material is named, it's always a good idea to name the shading group of it. So I'll come right here and I leave the SG in the end and I just type ground. So I can just give a name to the shading group, and SG stands for the shading group. And let's go ahead and drop a light in the Arnold, drop in a sky dome. To make it more interesting and fun, I can bring in an HDRI image, a high definition resolution image. And I think I mentioned this last week. You can find a lot of HDRI images to this website, HDRI Heaven. You go to the HDRIs and you get a couple of those. It would be very interesting to have the light source coming from images like this, which is going to make those reflections and those highlights much more realistic. So here I do have one, so I'm gonna go to bring this HDRI image, some very large file sizes, 385 megabytes files. So I'm gonna open one of them and to see some interesting results here. Now I will go and bring in the Arnold's rendering view. It took a bit of time because it's a large image. So I'll go under Arnold again and open this Arnold render view. By the way, if you ever don't see Arnold in your Maya, then you must come here to under Windows, Setting and Preferences, Plugin Manager. So if you're missing ever anything in Maya that you expect to see based on whatever lectures or tutorials you see, then that's the way to get them back. You go under Setting Preferences, Plugin Manager, and here, these are not always checked like this, like you see here. I check them all like this, and I have saved those preferences. So to check them all, you just click one time to this load it and one time to the auto load. So next time that you open Maya, it auto loads itself. And you do this for all these panels one at a time. Just go and make sure these are all checked and then refresh and then close it. And so once you refresh this, you should be able to see Arnold. So right now I go to Arnold, open the render view. So there are two render views, if you notice. This one is something more manageable, and the other one is the IPR, simple IPR, meaning the interactive production renderer, which keep going while you make the changes. I don't recommend you use this. I recommend you use this so you can test renders back and forth. Okay, so I'm opening this. And notice here you have also the IPR and also the one on demand. You can render on demand, or you can use the IPR, which never stops, keeps rendering while you change things around. So I like this because I want to render when I want to, and I don't want this to continue because sometimes it can crash Maya. Let's go and start rendering here. Another thing I would do here, I don't like to be distracted from the background. So I would hide this by selecting the sky dome and hiding the camera by bringing this to 0. I'm gonna go ahead and open the hypershade. And so here is my ground. Now we see a bit more here. So let me click on this and hold down the backslash to select the inputs and outputs and bring it up here. So, and this one here, I believe is the sky dome. So hold down backslash and move it away so it's not in our way. And here we are now. This is our ground, okay? I can come up here to give it the texture. So I go and bring in a file, and then I'm going to go to the folder for the file, and I do have the ground. So notice I have this JPEG ground texture, which I'm going to use. So I'm going to open this, and I'm not seeing it here because I have to change the shading here to the hardware texturing. And so here it is. Another thing I'll do before I continue, this backdrop here is getting in the way. And another thing is happening. Look what is happening. I'm going far away and everything disappears. And this might happen to you too. And if that happens, you come back to the outliner, you select the plane and you click F, and it brings you back. So now what I want to show you, if this happens to you, it means that the camera's settings can be changed a bit around for you to see. So what I would do is I go to the camera. Under view, we have camera attributes editor. What we need to tell the far clip plane, this is the far clip plane. So we can go ahead and bring in a couple of zeros here and click enter. And sometimes when you increase this to 0, sometimes you're gonna, if I click F here, you're going to start seeing the objects in a black mode. If you ever see that, you need to change also the near clip plane. So bring this from 0.1 to maybe 1 or 10. I wanted to bring this a bit on the side because it's on the way. Change the scaling of it. It would not affect anything to the rendering process. So that's what I usually do for having this scene clean. Now let's focus on this texture here with the hypershade close by and the attributes editor and the rendering view here. And let's go ahead and render. This is looking good, but if I go much closer here, notice this whitish color. This is the highlights coming from the specular color. So here in the attributes editor, let's go ahead and define the materials properties. Okay, we have done this in the past. Let's go back again and see how would you go ahead for this type of ground. So starting from the top here, we already mentioned that we need the weight of the base color. So that's how you read this. This is color. This is the weight of it. We have the base weight, and it's good idea to have this up to 1. Notice how it changed something in here, which is for better. And then here is the color we added. Now the diffuse roughness, the ground should be rough, right? This ground cannot be smooth and shiny. This one needs to be very rough, so we can go ahead and bring this roughness up a bit. And I'm gonna save this image and render one more time. And notice we have less white now because we increased the roughness. Okay, so if I save this image and test back and forth, this is how it was, and with the roughness is this. The specular color, it's in the maximum by default, and it means that this object is very smooth. It's like a glass type of object. There's no roughness at all in there, and it's very shiny. It's reflecting the light, color of the light, okay? And that's why it's white here. If I go and change the white to some red, you would be seeing some reddish tone after this. Because I'm in the snapshot mode, so I have to click one more time here to get out of this and then render once again. And now you see it became reddish, okay, because the color is red here. So let me go back in time. And so let's go ahead and lower this weight. By the way, when I had it red, it looked like it was okay because the ground is reddish and it went well with that. But in fact, it's not, okay? And that's how you can see it when you make it white, because you can see that it's just highlight. It's not the color, it's the reflection of the light. That's what it is. It's not even the reflection of objects. It's only the light. So this is what specular color is. It's like only the color of the light is not reflection. Reflection is added with metalness. If I want to add some reflection here, look how the thing changed here because I'm making this very metallic, this ground. And so if I render this, you're going to see reflected the sky. This is the blue color of the sky, okay? Now, if I lower also the color, the base of the color here, you're going to see just the sky here reflected. So let me bring the base up because we need the ground. And the specular color is lower numbers for the ground would be good. So 0.90 or 60 around this number. So let's render this again. And I have to lower the metalness because we don't want these reflections. Now metalness is good to have tiny bit of it. So like 0.03 or 2, it's good. And so let's render this again. And now I'm gonna save one more time the image and compare back and forth. Here is with the specular color up, and this is with no specular color. So we're getting more to the ground feel. Another thing we can do here, we can increase the roughness for the specular color. So here is 0.2 by default. We can go up to 0.4 here because this is a really rough object with a lot of roughness. This is even better. IOR 1.5 is the water. If I click on this like 3 lines like donut type of shape, I can get any IOR, index of refraction, that I want. But knowing that the water is 1.5, this is more than water. Water is transparent and stuff, and this is much more dense. So I would go to 1.6, just a bit above the water would be good here. And so that's all I have to do for the ground, for the material. So what we're going to do now is we're going to make this rock look like a rock. Okay, so right now it's like a plane, like an image. It doesn't really feel real. So I need to repeat UVs here because these are too big for these dimensions. So what I could do, I can repeat UVs by selecting this place 2D in the attributes editor. With this place 2D selected, we can go and repeat UVs in X and Y. Okay, so I'm gonna go and put a couple of, like, let's say for 3 by 3. Let's see if I can get to kind of more realistic type of look. Now notice this is a seamless texture, but any seamless texture would give you this repetition in the end. So try to be careful so the camera doesn't see at some point. But these are based on the ball that I'll create soon. This is more like a real, it gives me a real feel of the real size compared to the ball. Okay, so that's why I did that. And if I go ahead and render this, so that's what we're seeing. Let's go a bit closer and see now how we're going to get the bump maps here or the displacement map working for us. Okay, so for us to compare these images, another thing I can do is I can come to the window view and log this camera. And so if I want to see this from another view, I can go ahead and create a new camera. So I can move things around here, but in the renders, we're always going to see this for comparing purposes. Okay, so let's go ahead and see how we can do the displacement mapping or bump mapping. Now, bump mapping is a part of this normal camera in our material. So let me go ahead and select the material here. And if I go down here to the settings, I think is geometry, because I usually don't use it, but here it is. And if I click on here, I can go ahead and bring in a file to be used as a bump map. Now, the quickest way to think about it is to use the same file, because this same file is going to have the same bumps basically. And I am going to do this for now and see the results. So I will select this file and look what happened. I told you it's part of the normal to the camera. So just by doing this through the attribute editor, this bump to denote was dropped here to the normal of the camera. That's how it works. Yeah, let's go ahead and render one more time. And it didn't seem like like anything happened again. Oh, just a tiny bit. Okay, and so let's see what is going on here. Now, remember, we went to the place to texture node for the color, and I increased the repeat UV 3 by 3, the first thing, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and do this the same because it's the same file and it's not repeated now. It's used for bump mapping, but it's not repeated. So let me go to this one, place to texture, and do the same to start with. Okay, 3 by 3. This is good. Let's go ahead and give it a render first and save this and compare with the previous one. I'm not seeing yet anything, okay? So if I select the bump map in here, this is the node. Up here, we have these bump value, okay, which if I go in, I don't have the image yet. And remember, I dropped in the file, but I don't have the image yet. So I'm gonna go and bring in the image because I forgot to do that. Actually, I really forgot, but I was trying to find out what is going on. And let me go inside, it's here. Okay, so this is the same image I'm bringing in and open it up. I changed the place to the texture, so it's gonna match with this one here, okay? And let's try one more time. Now we see bump mapping, okay? We see some bump mapping going on. And let's go ahead and make it even closer. So I'm gonna, oh, it's not locked. Look how is this looking right now with this bump mapping. But let me go really close so we can see a real difference here. And let's try this. It's not looking like it's going close though. So I can go ahead and try to render this. And even though I can see the bump mapping, but it's not looking great at all. Okay, so now we can work around with settings here. We can come to the bump mapping and we can change the bump mapping depth, okay, and try to see different levels.